Hi, it's Panda Movies here. Today, I'm going to explain the movie called The World's End. Warning, there are spoilers ahead. Enjoy the video. Gary King, a 40-year-old alcoholic, has retained his adolescent thinking and immaturity, although his four childhood buddies, Oliver Chamberlain, Peter Page, Stephen Prince, and Andrew Knightley, have all grown up. Gary has been estranged from the four until one day, in an attempt to reclaim his youth, he approaches the end and invites them to participate in the Golden Mile, a pub crawl that includes the 12 pubs of their hometown of Newton Haven, the last of which is the World's End. The gang attempted the crawl as teenagers on their last day of school 23 years ago, but failed to reach the final 3 bars. Andy, now a teetotaler due to a drunk driving accident years ago involving himself and Garris, reluctantly agrees to join after Gary lies about his mom dying. At the second pub, the old familiar, the group encounters Oliver's sister, Sam, who Gary and Stephen fought over in school. In the teenage crawl, Gary had sex with Sam in the toilets of the 7th pub, the two-headed dog, except for the bartender of the 3rd pub, the famous cock, who informs them that they are prohibited. The local residents appear eerily stoic and do not seem to recognize the gang early in the crawl. When Gary interrupts Peter's heartbreaking narrative at the cross hands, the group begins berating him for his childishness and lack of empathy. Gary, angry and irritated, goes to the restroom and gets into a fight with the youngster, knocking his head off and revealing him to be an android. As Gary's pals confront him about lying about his mother's death in the bathroom, the other members of the teens gang, all of whom are androids filled with the blue ink-like material, enter the bathroom and engage in a struggle with their human friends. The group notices that the entire town has been replaced with android replicas they refer to as blanks. Andy abandons his teetotal lifestyle in shock. To escape suspicion, Gary advises them to continue their pub crawl. When Gary tries to acquire some herbal refreshment, he discovers that drug dealer Trevor is working with the blanks to escape being replaced, and Oliver walks to the bathroom while the others find that the androids wish to enhance humanity. Trevor receives a phone call from his supervisor as a result of asking too many questions, and then exits worriedly, since he has evidently revealed too much. The party runs into Sam again at the two-headed dog, where Gary, Sam, and Stephen battle blank copies of Sam's childhood buddies, dubbed the twins. She joins them at the Mermaid, where Stephen learns from Basil, a resident who hasn't yet been replaced by a blank simulant, that the blanks are attempting to construct an affluent galactic conglomerate with humanity's help, and that any humans who refuse will be replaced with identical simulants. Unwilling to lose their humanity and finding out that both Oliver and their old school teacher, Mr. Shepard, has been replaced, the group fights against a bar full of blanks. The situation worsens after fleeing the beehive. Gary lets Sam, the only one sober enough to drive safely, flee Newton Haven alone. Pete is apprehended after hitting the blank who has replaced his childhood bullies, and as a result, Gary abandons Andy and Stephen at the King's Head to continue the Golden Mile alone. Andy and Stephen, along with the rest of Newton Haven, pursue Gary, and Stephen is apprehended at the hole in the wall while attempting to drive himself and his remaining pals out of town. He tracks Gary down at the World's End and confronts him, setting off a brawl. Andy reveals that his marriage is in peril during their fight, while Gary's bare wrists disclose evidence of a recent suicide attempt. Andy tries to stop Gary from drawing his final pint, but Gary clings to completing the mile, saying it is the only thing in life he can achieve. The floor drops into a hidden cavern as Gary pulls the lever to pour himself a pint. The blank invasion, according to a disembodied alien entity known as the Network, is responsible for recent technological developments in telecommunication, which represent the first step toward humans joining a galactic society. The Network offers Gary eternal youth if he becomes a blank, but he refuses. Gary engages into a foul-mouthed dispute with the Network, calling out the tyranny in the latter's plan and urging that humanity be left to its own ways, along with Andy and Stephen, who have survived. Exasperated, the Network eventually agrees to call off the invasion. As the town is destroyed, Sam returns to rescue Gary, Andy, and Stephen, and they flee to the hills, but they are unable to outrun the pulse triggered by the Network's departure, which disables Sam's automobile. Andy subsequently claims that the pulse caused a global blackout, destroying all electrical power on Earth and reverting civilization to the Dark Ages. The remaining blanks reactivated a few weeks later, and although they are now independent from the Network, they are mistrusted and shunned by most of the surviving humans. Andy's marriage is back on track, Stephen is dating Sam, and the virtual Peter and Oliver have picked up where their human counterparts left off. In the ruins of Newton Haven, the now sober Gary enters a pub with the blank versions of his younger friends and orders water. When the bartender refuses to serve blanks, Gary instigates a brawl with his companions.